Without further ado, you don't want me prattling on, let me introduce you to the stars of Assassin's Creed. Let's start by giving a big round of applause to Kassandra, otherwise known as Melissanthi Mahut. You get to pick which chair you want now. You get to pick. So, I mean, people are going to start. If you decide to sit over there, people will think we fell out or something. You can. That's safe. Yes. Very. She's done this before. Very good. And then next, let's introduce ourselves to Aya and Alix. Come on up stage, Alix. Alix Wilton Regan from Assassin's Creed Origin. And then last, but certainly not least, on stage with me, we have Bayek himself. It's Abubakar Salim. But the joy is the beauty of modern technology is, even though she's not here with us, I think we should give the most rousing sort of welcome to the person who's been sat watching on Zoom somewhere. It's Victoria Atkin, otherwise known as Evie Frye. Where are you? Hello, there she is. Hello, Victoria.
Hi.
And look at this, the tech is working. This is amazing, because the amount of these I've done where it doesn't work, this is fantastic, brilliant. So many things to talk about, and obviously, sadly, as we could be here for hours. But I guess where we should start is with the beginnings of your journey. Alix, since you're sat next to me, I'll start with you. Can you remember getting the call, and what was that audition process like to get into this franchise?
Yeah, I can absolutely remember getting the call because it went through my on-camera agent as opposed to my voiceover agent, which is surprising. And I was like, why is that? And then I realized it's because they wanted what's called performance capture, so my face, my voice, and my body. And I went in, and then they told me in the room it was for Assassin's Creed, and I got really excited. But I had an ace up my sleeve, which was the writer was a Dragon Age Inquisition fan, so he was really lovely. And then I went through, a few rounds of auditioning for Aya, and eventually I got the job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Abu, we were talking about this earlier before we came on stage. I'm just making sure that we give such a fun anecdote. Like, we have to talk about this on stage, so I'm talking about it now. You auditioned with Alix.
Yeah, I did.
What was that like?
It was both embarrassing and amazing at the same time. Yeah,
because you were also a Dragon Age Inquisition fan.
I am a Dragon Age Inquisition fan, Mass Effect fan as well. So then when Alix was in the room, it did make me feel a bit like, okay, this is a lot. I've spent a lot of hours with your voice.
Hello.
It was really, really something. But again, it was the same thing, right? It was through my on-screen agent where I got the audition and heard about the audition. I didn't even know it was for Assassin's Creed to begin with. So I kind of went in there, young actor, thinking, yeah, okay, cool, this is good. Performance capture, never done it before. But I'm a massive Assassin's Creed fan. Like, I remember buying the first Assassin's Creed and like diving into that world and just falling in love with it.
Yeah.
And so, when the news dropped that it was for Assassin's Creed, again,
And how far through the process are you at that point?
Oh man, I think it was by
the time we met, you knew it was for Assassin's Creed.
No, I don't think so. No.
When we were doing the stuff on the boat?
No.
Okay.
And the parkour wasn't a giveaway?
No. No, man. No, it wasn't.
Can you wear this hood and do some
yeah,
parkour?
Wait, hang on. Did we tell you in the room?
You told me in the room.
We told him in the room.
So I'm losing my mind that I've got the Inquisitor with me, and then they tell me it's Assassin's Creed, and I'm like, okay.
I remember this in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he walked out, and I was like, well, we should clearly give him the job because he's a fan of mine. Even though I had absolutely no say over casting, but we did have a natural chemistry, which is true.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you remember, Melissanthi, because I can remember I spoke to you when you were BAFTA nominated for your performance as Kassandra. Obviously, it went really well for you, but can you remember the beginning of that journey?
Yeah, I also had absolutely no idea what I was auditioning for. I think I found out after phase 4, I think, where it was my in-person audition with Michael in the space it lasted for about 4 hours. Michael, I think, had already been cast for the part, and I think that they were doing like chemistry tests with various Cassandras. And Michael was the person to tell me. So just blame Michael for just spoiling that.
Yeah.
So he took me aside and was like, "You do know what this is for, right?" I was like, "I have no fucking idea." It's like, "It's for Assassin's Creed." What? It's like, no idea. Nothing.
Would you have rather him not say anything, actually? Because the pressure then ramps up, doesn't it?
I mean, no. I was grateful that he said it, because then I was like, okay, I need to. If I hadn't been until that point, like, really the effort.
Yeah.
to nail
Oh, now I
this
try.
somehow.
Okay, fine. Yeah, fine. Victoria, I'd love to speak to you about this as well, because I love your career at this point, because you've done Hollyoaks and Holby City. Next thing you know, you're Evie Frye. That is quite the leap, isn't it? That's quite the dramatic range you've got there.
Yeah, I mean, particularly because I played a transgendered character on Hollyoaks. It was a huge thing, and I'd not done, like, these guys had not done performance capture before, and so yeah, I mean, my career has been extremely eclectic. I don't know, I get to play these fantastic characters, and they find me. But Evie Frye is one of my favorite things I've ever played. She's an incredible character, and I love that it's in Victorian London. And that was my favorite part of, like, researching the role.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in the library, kind of looking at these big books of what it was like in that time, and how life was, and that for me was the preparation, and the rehearsal for that was really fun. But I didn't know what it was for either.
Yeah.
When I auditioned.
Very secretive, aren't they, these assassins? They don't.
Still are.
Yeah.
All the best video games are.
But interesting you say that you really enjoyed the fact that it was London, because I was asked, because you get to, in your games, go to, ancient Greece and ancient Egypt and these amazing places, and you're, treading around streets, granted much earlier in time, but places that we're more familiar with. But you enjoyed that. You enjoyed that rather than thought, I could have done the Caribbean.
Oh,
or
no,
something.
I loved it. Especially with the characters that you get to meet, like people like Charles Dickens and Charles Darwin, Queen Victoria, people that I would have loved to have met in real life, that I kind of got to meet with these fantastic actors that were sort of guest starring in these roles. So no, I liked it. And I liked when I got to see the finished production of it, climbing up Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, and those things in that time was very magical.
Yeah. Remember not to do it in real life, isn't it? It's just a game, isn't it?
Yeah, I had a bit of trouble doing that in real life.
I'm interested in, and perhaps we might not know the answer directly. Maybe we can figure it out together. Mark was talking about the two different phases that there've been of Assassin's Creed games up to this point, with the early games being a bit more action adventure led, and yours being more role play orientated. Do you think that your performances, therefore, would have been different to what Victoria had to do because the nature of the games are different? If you see what I mean, would there have been more physicality depending on the genre of the game? If you see what I mean.
I think it's more to do with the amount of content that you would have to then record and do. I'd say, and trying to keep that continuity of the character and the story as a whole. I think the previous Assassin's Creed games, they were, not to say necessarily that they aren't linear now, they are linear, but I do feel like it's just a lot more vast, and so to keep that kind of that energy consistently throughout the throughout the process of it all, is different, and it requires almost like another element of focus, I find, whereas it's very much like. Because I remember playing Syndicate and really enjoying it and loving it, and it felt like a good sort of almost like a film, right? Whereas with a lot of the RPG elements, it almost feels like a TV series. So you have to kind of keep that, especially as a performer, I feel like that it's hard to keep that focus sometimes. But at the same time, it just provides a different experience.
Yeah, is energy, Melissanthi, one of the big challenges for you when you're in a room, and it's an odd environment, isn't it? The voice booth, and even when you've got all the dots on and you're doing motion capture, it is a different environment than being on a set, for example. So is energy a big issue?
Oh, look, very different, but not, I think, in the way that you'd expect. Voice booth is difficult for me personally because you don't really have anyone to act off of. That's the bit that I find the most difficult in the voice booth. But if you're on the mocap floor, yes, you don't have the facilitation of the costume. Yes, you don't have the facilitation of the set. But at the same time, I find it a lot more freeing because you don't have these. I feel that a lot of the time it builds up an expectation in your mind as to what it should be like. Whereas if you're wearing the mocap suit, then suddenly you're a lot freer to imagine and explore different ways that this could be interpreted. So for me, the mocap floor was like a playground. So energy was off the charts.
Your character, how did you prep for that, Alex? How did you get into the zone?
Well, I tried to. Abu knows this part of the story. So I went back to boxing and kickboxing.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm going to take this very seriously, my friends. Got to Montreal. I was like, I'm ready. Give me some stunts. Give me some action. Give me some movement. They were like, what? And I was like, no, I'm ready. Like, come on, let's go. They said, well, you can get down off the box and do like the jump where you hit. I was like, okay, the box, let's go. The box was this high, my friends. This high. And I got to jump. This is true, isn't it? From there to there and go, bam. That was basically all I was allowed to do physically. Because obviously you have to, you can't kill us, which is, I suppose, reasonable. But yeah,
it would have been a nightmare for HR.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It would have been really annoying, right?
Yeah.
I have to say, props to Abu. He was an absolute fountain of knowledge on the shoot, and anything I didn't understand, it's like, what's the hidden blade do? It's like, fucking hell, Jesus. But everything from like world to lore to legend, Abu knew everything.
Yeah.
And we had some
guys.
Yeah, and we had incredible vocal coaches who were brilliant.
Really good.
And we did like get to run around with like plastic swords and dustbin lids, and it was really cool.
So did you
imaginary crocodiles? Do you remember the crocodiles? They were like screaming, "Snap, crocodile! Snap, crocodile!"
Yeah. So did you have to do much reading up on the situation in Egypt at that time before turning up? Or were you taught as you were learning as the characters were going?
We kind of knew a lot. Like obviously Cleopatra's super famous. Caesar's super famous.
Yeah.
Like
we know them. We know them. We got them.
Yeah,
they're good.
Super famous.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. Beyonce, you might have heard her. Super famous. So we knew who the big guns were already.
Did you manage to wangle a holiday to Egypt as part of research?
Marc-Alexis, how do you feel about a holiday to Egypt post? Great, you got it here on camera. He said yes. He said yes.
And I'll ask you the same question, Victoria. Did you, obviously, you talked a little bit about, the love of the setting for your game and London in that era and some of those characters you met, talked about Charles Dickens and stuff. Did you sort of did you read around the characters much, or were you really focused on your lines and your script rather than sort of broader knowledge of that time and space?
Well, I think there's a lot of different elements that came into it. Like obviously, Evie and Jacob are twins, so we had to work a lot on the chemistry of that and kind of making sure that they felt like real twins. That we built the history of them, their lives together, and they'd lost their parents, and how does that affect a person? And I as a person am interested in how people become the people that they are because of the roads and the paths that they've had and the upbringing that they had. So that was interesting. We also requested that we had kind of these heavier boots, and I also actually have them with me in my studio, some heels, like boot heels for the motion capture, because I knew that, I saw the costume that she was wearing that they animated, and I was like, well, if she's wearing heels, like I need to wear those that are mocap boots on set because it's going to affect the way that I walk. So there was different nuances that I tried to pay attention to detail to. And we actually were really lucky that we had 3 weeks of rehearsal together before we started shooting anything. So the team in Quebec were incredible. We did a lot of chemistry stuff together. We'd had a lot of time to play. And we worked with Jeffrey Yahalem, who wrote the script. And he really was so impactful in putting lots of details into the script about the twins, about their upbringing. He gave us a lot of information, and like Abu said, ours was very filmic. We had, it was like a 1,000-page script, but it was very linear. We knew which phases that we were going to, and we shot a lot of it in order. I mean, of course, there was extra gameplay things, and we did the DLC, and different spin-offs, but it really did feel like they get to Starrick at the end and they fight the boss and they go and complete these missions, and you go through these things. So we had a story, and we were able to, I mean, I prepared it the same way I would prepare for any other acting job. Really.
And just that we were touching on that earlier. Your game is from a slightly different era in the franchise's history. So did you feel like you were quite active in terms of the action sequences and things of that nature in your shoot?
Well, I had a fantastic French woman who did all Evie Frye's stunts, but we were heavily involved on the motion capture stage in Toronto. From day one, and we actually worked a lot in the voiceover booth together too. If we weren't together in the booth, and I think that was important to have the twins, and I think that's why the twins were very successful in that, and the chemistry. You know, Paul and I are very much like brother and sister in real life, but they that chemistry and the voiceover. You know, if I didn't have him in the booth with me, I had his lines that he'd recorded in my ear. I mean, obviously for him, so I think sometimes he had that, sometimes he didn't have that, you know, but they did really help us. And we also voiced that it would be helpful for us to have these extra elements that enable us to embody the character and to bring their incredible world that they'd animated to life.
Victoria's talked a little bit about her character there, Evie Frye. Let's talk about Kassandra a bit, Melissanthi. What did you, when you look back at her and your relationship with her as a character, what did you think of her? It's quite philosophical.
I don't really know where to begin. What do I think of her? I mean,
she's hot, man.
Thank you. I was going to say, but I don't. I mean, I don't really know how to. It's a character that I was with for such a long time, you know, that it feels, and there were so many parts of the character that I feel overlapped with my own personality. I think over the course of time, and obviously because it was, how long was we working on that? Like a year and a half? It changed so much, you know, and you start investing so much in the character, and you start being like, oh, maybe they'll be a little bit more like this, or maybe, you know, you start adopting sides of this character as well. I miss her very much. I miss spending time being her very much. But I wouldn't really know how to describe her, if I'm being honest. It's the lines are blurry.
I'm glad you said that, because we're going to come on to lines in a second. So
Great.
You see what I was doing? I
did it on purpose.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'll ask the same question for you then about Bayek, Abu. How do you, what do you think when you think of Bayek now? Do you smile? Do you get, oh, that was hard work? You know, what do you think of him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I ever planned for this character to have such a profound effect on so many people, as well as like on the industry. Like the fact that, like, you know, I'm still being wheeled out for it now. Like, it's like, you know, it's been a few years, you know, so it's pretty cool. And I think like there is something really crazy about it, because again, I was, you know, just talking about it in the green room, right? Like I did that role at like 23, and it's, you know, 31 now, you know, married with a kid. Like I've got such a different perspective to when I was 23. So it's just very. Do
you think that fearlessness helped you? Because because you just went into it.
Yeah,
and you did it.
I think so. I think there was an element of. There was a real element of play, because again, I still am massive fan of Assassin's Creed. Loved it, right? And I think there was a sense of really letting myself go. I was really living a fantasy, playing in a world that I've always wanted to play in. And I think, yeah, there was definitely that fearlessness that really helped me shape this character who had experienced the loss of a son, the breakup of a very deep relationship. So yeah, there were all these aspects that really aided that. But it is such a role that, like, even like people still ask, like, oh yeah, would you go back into it? And I would say yes in a heartbeat. But I think the character would be so different, like, because I have such a different perspective. So yeah, it's a funny one. Like I look at that character of Bayek there, and it's so almost so far removed from who I am now. I feel like if it was to, if I was to kind of step into those shoes again, it'd be so profoundly different. But I also think there would be a lot of depth. I don't know. It's interesting. It's so. I almost feel like it is an entity of itself. So every time that I am asked to talk about the role,
or reprise the role,
or even reprise it, it's almost like it will be a different Bayek. Like it will be a different character.
Well, we'll see that very shortly. And same question to Alex. You think of Aya, she kicks a lot of butt in your game. How do you think? Because you've played. Abu was talking about earlier. You've played a lot of very influential video game characters. Where does she sit in your pantheon?
Well, I mean, she's incredible. She's the mother of the Creed. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that. Mic drop, no. But it doesn't get much bigger than that. And actually something that, when you were talking, something that I really felt is that it's a very empowering thing to be, and I'm sure Victoria feels the same. It's a very empowering thing to go on set every day and you're like, I'm an assassin. And it's pretend. But I remember, I hadn't had a child at that point either. And I remember talking to the animators about how important it was that Aya was a mother. And so she would have slightly wider hips and she would move from her hips a lot more. I was thinking about how a woman's body changes in childbirth. And then she had her swords. And I remember putting them on and, again, a bit like what Victoria was saying, the costume informs the character informs the movement. It is a really empowering thing being one of the assassins, and being the hidden one, or Amunet, is a huge honor, And I think the interesting thing about what Abu and I hopefully did quite well, or what fans have fed back to us, is maybe because we were young and a bit fearless and playing, we went into it with this raw emotion that I remember a lot of do you remember the guys on set would be like, wow, that was intense and powerful. And Abu and I would stand up for it and be like, yeah, it has to be. They've lost a child. There's nothing worse in the world than losing a child. And we just went for it with such courage and fearlessness. And that's why I'm personally hugely attached to Aya and Bayek's story. And I think it's a really important one.
Now, Victoria, we're actually springing this on you live. So I'm going to come to you last, right? Because that wouldn't be fair for you to go to you first. What we're going to do is, because we thought it'd be fun. Why not? There's a camera over there. So give us a wave camera. There we are. I see the cameraman, gentleman waving over there.
Uh-oh.
Hi. There he is. So what we're going to do is we're going to look down the barrel of that lens, and we're going to go left to right. So we'll start with you, Abu. Yeah, I know. I know. You thought you were ducking it. And so you're going to go down the lens. And what I'd love for you to do, please, is to give us one of your lines, ideally your favourite line, or a line that you vividly remember, and do the voice. And you're going to do that right down the barrel of that lens. Sort of when you're ready. Any time from about now would be good, really.
Can we do two?
You can do two. You can do as many as you want. Well, maybe as many as you want. We can do two if you
Glutton
want.
for punishment, right here.
So Victoria, have a little think. Google your lines whilst.
That's what I'm just doing.
Abu gives us this down this camera over here, please.
Things I do for BAFTA. We'll see what ever no peace.
Ooh, very good.
Clap, man!
Very good.
I'm going to follow that with... There's another goat? And, I'm sorry, I'd be remiss if I didn't. Malaka.
The one's waving at you. I'm just going to back away. Do want to be in your shot.
I have renounced Aya. I have killed Aya. I am now the hidden one, known as Amunet.
Oh, very good. My hands aren't good enough. I'll definitely drop it. I think I got out of that for the social clip. So if I get my bellies in it, I'm really sorry. And then Victoria, so we're going to finish up with you. No pressure. Your favourite line, please, of Evie Frye.
I'm going to do a line that both of us said as a representation of the twins. So Ladies and gentlemen, we are Evie and Jacob Frye. And as of this moment, you work for us.
Oh, very good. Love it. Yeah, because those moments stay with people, don't they? And you think it was a moment on the lips for you and the Mocap studio, but here we are, 10 years, however many years later, and you're reprising them again. It's amazing the impact they have.
10 years.
Yeah,
10 years. Wow.
I know. Let's just breeze past the time. Melissanthi, it would be remiss of me not to ask you, not to ask all of you, but to start with you in terms of, we often talk when we have performers up on stage here about the relationship between games and other creative mediums, right? And essentially comparing performing in games with movies and television. You know, you've done, I was watching you in Eurovision relatively recently, which is a cracker. But you know, how, and it is, the relationship between both is changing and has become much more normalized. But how do you feel, with a foot in both camps, how sort of the other creative industries' impression of performers who've come up through games is changing? Or maybe it's not. Maybe we look at it with rose-tinted glasses, that everybody does think it's all great now. Or what's your experience?
Sorry, is the question how this medium is perceived by other mediums? Or
Yeah,
how
I think so. Yeah.
I think there's still a lot to be discovered, and I think there's still a lot to be learned about how this medium works. I think there's still a lot of, there's a lack of knowledge of what it includes, what it entails, what skills you have to have, that it's a lot of hard work, that there are a lot of people working in this industry and creating such incredible content. And I don't think that is still well known or recognized from other mediums as it should be.
Mm. It's interesting because often people will argue, that that those barriers have sort of come down, but maybe they haven't.
I wouldn't say that they have. I wouldn't say that they have. It's still not perceived, I think, as the same caliber. I don't understand why, frankly, but I think partly the reason is that there is insufficient knowledge about what goes on, how things are pieced together, what kind of technique is required, how much work goes into it. People don't have access, really. Maybe because they don't care really to know, or maybe because it's not that widely advertised. I really don't know why. It's incredibly unfair.
Yeah. And Abu, same question to you, because obviously watching you recently in House of the Dragon, you've done a lot of telly as well as your performance in games and making your own games. How do you feel that relationship, or where that relationship is at the moment?
Yeah, I think, again, it really ties, because, again, this is also something that I've been really stirring in my mind as well. And I do think that it really ties to this idea of, games not necessarily being seen as an art form, but more as a business. And, or like as a hobby or something, to kind of do. It's not, I feel like within the industry, even actually within the industry, I think we are struggling to actually see games as art. And I think, that's what's so great about places like BAFTA, for example, where it champions the artistic elements of games. And I think like that's still something that we need to do more. And I think as soon as that is like really kind of respected and acknowledged, then everyone else will kind of, especially within the film and TV industry, will resonate and see it that way. And I think like, it's only actually even recently, I would say, like even with TV, for example, where we're beginning to see it as like, oh yeah, that's really good TV. Whereas beforehand, it was just like, oh, TV. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think that there's still a journey to be had. It's hard. It's a hard one to answer.
It still feels as if the film and TV industry kind of perceive the gaming industry as that industry that is making billions, and we don't know why. Like, we don't understand why. How could they be doing this?
And I'll ask the same question to you, Alex and Victoria, because your experiences in the industry, everybody's got a slightly different perception of it. So I'm interested in your take on it, Alex, and I'll come to you, Victoria, as well, before moving on.
Well, I think a couple of things come to mind. One, the video game industry is worth $4 billion more globally than all of the film industries combined. Hollywood, Nollywood, Bollywood, and other smaller film industries. So video games are kicking butt and taking names, commercially speaking. Artistically speaking, in my humble opinion, they only get better as the years go on because the companies invest more in the writers, they invest more in the actors, we get to rehearse, it's really well thought out. But I agree that there is a lack of understanding, in particular perhaps from traditional film and TV casting directors who don't really understand what it is that we do.
And they're the gatekeepers, right?
And they're the gatekeepers to film and television, which is a shame that they don't understand that we are actually filming. We get given a script, we learn our lines, we show up for work, we rehearse, we perform it. There are different cameras that move in for close-ups, and it works really quite similarly to what I describe as a filmed play, is how I would describe it. But yeah, just on that point, I also think there is an element where the game companies are now only just catching up with the fact that, you know, you look at the success of Baldur's Gate 3 and how well the cast have done out of that, for example, because Larian Studios recognized that they are stars, because they are stars, and they wheeled them out and they did press and interviews. That wasn't really available to us, really not in the way that it is now, or in the way that I'm seeing going into contracts, for example, that I'm looking at the moment, where press will now be included in the contract. I'd never seen that before.
And that's a relatively recent change for you.
Super recent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and for you as well, Victoria, I think it's quite an important one. So I'll give you a chance to answer this one, and then I'll move on.
Yeah, I think I have an interesting perspective. I've been advocating for the dialogue, and I've worked with Vicon, who provide a lot of the motion capture cameras for performance capture. And I worked with them to produce 6 seasons of the Performance Capture podcast, where I interview creatives, I interview AAA leads, I've interviewed casting directors, and to try and educate, like Melissanthi says, you know, the industry about this. And also on the back of that, built a kind of an online school to help actors to understand how they can use their skills to, you know, generate understanding this niche and how they can tape for it and how they can do that. So I have been trying to advocate for this education in this medium, and for this, the podcast for me is about archiving what we're doing and creating a space in history that can live on, and because I don't think that exists. And I also think BAFTA games are incredible at recognizing the talent in this field. And I think once the Academy does that, it will shift too. Somebody like Andy Serkis, Terry Notary, or Zoe Saldana doing all the stuff that she does in Avatar. Once that gets recognition globally, it will shift this is my prediction, that it will shift the performance capture industry, and the work will garner the recognition and success and the understanding of the process of the actor during this phase.
Yeah.
I also think what's really successful is the creative dialogue with developers at the initial stages. When the developers, and what I've enjoyed about the conversations that I've had, when they understand the actor's process, it actually informs their work. And the directors that are more involved in the creativity with the actor and understand, I think there's directors that come from an animation perspective, and there's directors that come from a film perspective. And it's a very different experience, the games that I've worked on, when they don't understand the actor's process and when they do. And I think the walls are being broken every single day. I think the barriers are being smashed between these kind of separations of animation and acting.
Yeah.
And I think the more that happens, and the more that the actor's process is respected in this process and also recognized, and I think we are doing well. I think there's still a long way to go, but I think it's getting better and easier to see this work that these individuals are doing.
Now, we've got just about 5 minutes or so left, so I want to rattle through a couple more points before we finish up. I'll start with you, Abu, because you said you were a big fan of the franchise when you walked into that room and saw Alex there and realised, hang about, this is for Assassin's Creed. Why do you think that Assassin's Creed has stood the test of time? Because so many other games came out at the same time that aren't your 13, 14, 15 main releases later, you know, packing out an audience like this in central London to come and listen to you guys talk. Yeah. Why do you think that?
Good story, and it's really human. Just, like, hands down. Like, it's one of those, you know, it's a game where it's not only, you know, you can you can find a shade of yourself in as a player, but it's just good storytelling. Like and I think that's essentially why it has stood the test of time. It's good storytelling. It's always been good storytelling.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, moments where the story is weak, the fans talk about it, right? It can be and that's the thing, and that's what I love about it, is the fact that, and the team at Ubi, they're like, yeah, cool, all right, well we'll double down on creativity and story, and I love that. And so yeah, it's good story and it's human storytelling.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time with Kassandra and Melissanthi. Why do you think this is a game that we're still talking about all these years later? Yeah, the franchise and your game in particular, yeah.
I mean, well, I completely agree. The storyline is, I mean, I can't really add something to that. That was exactly what I believe. I mean, Odyssey, I guess, there is a fascination about ancient Greece. There is a fascination with mythology. It does carry on to a lot of the lore, and a lot of the stories that we use is the same prototype, archetype, and that was, I think, heavily emphasized within the game as well. So I think that kind of adds to the reason why it's been so popular. I don't want to say me or anything.
Yes, because absolutely. And you've done lots of games, Alex. What's the special sauce that this has got that others perhaps don't quite manage to capture?
I do think it has an advantage and an edge in that it's always updated to another location, another time zone. So it's continuously something fresh and interesting and groundbreaking to get your teeth into. It wouldn't work if the writing was bad, but because the writing's good, it's always interesting, and therefore you become more interested in it, in the franchise, and you kind of commit to it.
Yeah. And of course, people know who Julius Caesar is. So
they do.
That was a big help.
And Cleopatra.
And Cleopatra, of course.
It helped.
Celebrity.
And why do you think, Victoria? You've performed in lots of games and you contributed lots in this space. Why is it, do you think, that people still ask you about Evie as opposed to perhaps some of your other characters?
I think Abu is right on this, and I love what the girls have said too. It's the human element. I think the fact that it's a brother and sister, the fact that they, even throughout the game, they have these kind of resting period with the cinematic scenes. In our game in particular, that you kind of get to see the facade and the human element, and I think that that's what gamers, from what I've heard, and why they've connected with the characters across the games, with these incredible actors like these three here and the other actors that play these games. They're bringing their heart and soul to the character, and the amazingness of performance capture technology, and why I am so passionate about it, is that it can capture the element of a soul that you can't do with anything else. You don't actually see these people. You just see the essence and their emotion coming through the camera in a way is for me is continuously fascinating, and the habits and the way that people speak, and I think it's so focused on the actual element and essence of a person, and I love that, and I love what the writers have written and the interaction. So I think the human element is the part that's so special about this franchise.
Right, two more quick ones for me before we go and have a drink. Abu, if you could go back, if I give you an Animus now, you could lie down there and you could go to any place. You must have guessed this was coming. You could go to any place or time in history, and you can't say your own game. You can't say ancient Egypt. That's the cop out. That's cheating. Where would you go
totally
to?
Gonna go for that.
I know. I could see it in your eyes. Where would you go to and why? I didn't prep them on this one, so this is unfair. This is unfair. What are you going to do? It's too late now. I've asked now.
The problem is, if I was to go back in time, didn't really treat my people very well, did they?
Good point.
So, maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe.
London 2025's part of it.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, that's pretty good. Yeah, no, actually, no, okay. If I was really, hell, man, I mean, like, maybe take me to the 80s. That shows my age. Yeah. I don't know, like, show me Assassin's Creed at that time. Or, like, maybe you're in the 70s or the 50s or, like, whatever. Like, I don't know, man. It's hard because I guess it's hard. Look, you're not the first person to ask me this question.
Yeah.
And, I think beforehand I've always wanted to, I've always been like, oh, I'd love to go to, like, either ancient Egypt or either like back in the medieval times or all this stuff. But then again, you listen, you're like, no, it's all about historical accuracy, and I'm like, man, my historical accuracy is really rough. So I don't know if I can answer this.
Flares and 70s will take it. That works.
Yeah, because
I can
I'd
see
like
it.
to rock a fro, man,
can
and
see
like, that,
Alex, what about you?
Well, I was going to say the same thing. I was like, oh, Egypt would have actually been really interesting, but I can't have that. So then I was like, medieval times. I was like, not as a woman during the witch trials, surely not. So then I was like, ancient Rome. I was like, don't be stupid. You could have been born a slave. That would be terrible. So it's hard. Like as a woman, I'm like, where do we go? Some incredible matriarchal society on an island somewhere that's like wonderful, and we're just ruling things, and everything's peaceful and calm and wonderful and orderly. There you go.
Oh, you know what? I got one.
Go on.
Okay,
I got one.
Back in the room.
There was there is a story I remember. There's of this like African king who like was like the richest king in the world, and like still was, who like traveled with his gold pieces and with his elephants like all over, like I think it was Africa. That'd be a really cool time to kind of explore.
It's good.
As long as you're the king.
As long as I'm the
As
king.
long as he's the
You
king.
see?
That's
That's
the crucial element.
Melissanthi, you have been having a bit of a crisis over
I
there.
am.
Whilst,
I am. I'm still not
whilst
over
trying
it.
to think of this answer.
This is not going well.
Do you want me to
for
go to Victoria first and then come back to you? It's like when you're ordering at the
Please
menu in a
do.
restaurant and and you've got to ask someone to go
this
first.
doesn't work for me. Yeah, please do.
Okay,
Please. Sorry,
Victoria, we'll go to you. Where would you go to and why?
Yeah,
and then...
I think I have two little ideas. One would be the future, because I do think that things for women are getting better and better. And two would be India. I love that at the end, Evie Frye and Henry get married, and I would love to see like the spirituality and the different like stuff that would come with that, and exploring that. We did a little bit of that in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, but more of that, like ancient India and different things that would come through that.
And then we're going to finish this one, Melissanthi, on you.
Okay. I mean, I know that we're at that period, but I really do want to go to Renaissance Italy, and I'm going to choose 3.
Why not?
Because why not? Aztec civilization.
Ooh.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Ooh, yeah.
Would love to go there.
As long as you're
This is
not
giving
a
you loads of
slave.
ideas, Mark, for your team meeting.
The only one who can travel throughout.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, and I'm gonna go with the 90s.
Shows her age.
Yeah. You just love
It was
Britpop. You
fun.
just absolutely love Britpop, and you want more Britpop in games. That's what you say.
Yes, I do.
Well, on that note, when we see the 90s Assassin's Creed game, we know this is where you heard it first. Or the Aztec one. Maybe the Aztec one might be the winner. We'll see. Well, listen,
It'd be super cool.
thank you very much for being here and chatting so openly and candidly with us. It's been lovely
Thank
to
you
have
for having
you.
us.
So we're wrapping up there. But like Luke said, and he's going to give you more details now, there is drinks coming very soon. But if you'd like to have one more time, give us a big round of applause for all our actors for being here on stage.